So today, our content, what we're going to be looking at today is what are some of the successes, challenges, and what's the journey like when somebody decides to embark on implementing Holacracy. My name is Anna McGrath, in case I haven't met some of you up until now. I'm the founder of WonderWorks Consulting. Margaret Ryan is also a founder of WonderWorks, and we do have Ra in the background on technology. But without further ado, I want to jump into introducing our guest today. So I am very happy to be in conversation with a fellow pioneer seeker and great buddy of mine, Gayle Colman. And we've actually found each other a number of times in our seeking journey, shall I say. One of the times, or the first time, was when we were both at the Hendricks Institute, which is one of the finest somatic transformation leadership programs I've ever experienced. And then we are now deepening our journey over these past few years on our journey, our deep dive journey with Holacracy. Gayle is the founder of Colman Knight Advisory Group, and she started that back in, I believe, 1988. So she's had 26 years of practice. They actually provide integral wealth advisory services in the most spectacular and brilliant way. And she started implementing Holacracy back in 2011. And so that means basically she's been practicing with Holacracy for the last 3 years. So I want to thank Gayle for joining me today. I know that wherever she shows up, she brings all of her wisdom, and she'll be sharing that, particularly the specific part of her wisdom relating to Holacracy, but also we both are really passionate about all sorts of transformational practices, so I'm sure that will weave in as we speak. So welcome, Gayle.
Well, thank you. I just so appreciate being here and playing with you and being able to share what this journey has been like. And it was really funny. You were saying sharing our wisdom, and then a voice came through and it said, also sharing my stupidity. I mean, it's like, because that is, honestly, that is what this is like, Holacracy is like. It's like this bumper pool of bowling, you know, you hit each side, but lots of strike spares and, you know, gutter balls in between. I don't know where that came from, but anyways. Yeah, so thank you for having me, because I'm really excited to share whatever experience, knowledge, wisdom, stupidity that I have to offer.
Excellent. For me, all of that is so critical. We want all of those aspects. Yeah, there's no editing here. There's no looking pretty. There's looking amazingly and pretty, and and whatever else, whatever other mess happens along the way is all brilliant too. Yeah. So thanks, Gayle. So when I think about Holacracy, it really is, it is definitely a journey. And I'm thinking, what were some of the initial things? Like, what caught your attention in the very beginning part of your journey back in whenever that was?
Yeah, thank you. You know, it's interesting, because we'd always been told that we should have this, you know, great kind of organizational structure. I mean, in the financial services and financial planning, and nothing ever felt right. I mean, there's always something that felt very artificial. And I stumbled upon Holacracy probably through integral theory and that landscape, because that's the approach that we use for our integral wealth services. And so participating in a webinar, then that further reinforced how Holacracy was really in alignment with how we approach the work we do in the world. The first huge hook and the first huge thing that said, oh my God, this is really gonna what I want, was that it tagged into an evolutionary purpose. So as founders of an organization, you know, we held the reason for this, you know, Colman Knight being in existence, and it felt very tight and closed, like we had to do it, and it was, in the end, it was only about us. And so that evolutionary purpose, like, you know, why are you in existence for the world, just opened up a whole lot of space, a whole lot of freedom. And then right after that, it was, okay, the clarity with roles, clarity with accountabilities, so that members can actually really plug in easily, seamlessly into the organization.
Right. So I'm thinking of those early stages because you started the implementation, and then I remember us having our interaction about as we were, now both diving kind of independently, having found this thing, and then now again going, okay, how do we really now have fun on this part of the journey? So when you think about the initial, there's kind of what caught your attention. And as I think about my journey about, okay, am I willing to change my entire company to line up with Holacracy? Because there's interest, and then there's the next stage of, yes, I'm willing to really transform everything within the organization, because that's ultimately what ultimately Holacracy does do. And so could you share maybe a little bit about that part of the journey for you, to say the decision to go?
Yeah. So if I can transport myself back in time, there was a lot of tension, a lot of pressure. I think, it was, I'm probably, my victim and whiner saying, I'm so sick of thinking I do everything, and then actually doing it and not trusting. There's a lot of, roles. We all had, our job functions and job descriptions, but it fed into my hero, my superwoman, competent, whatever, and it wasn't fun. It was just perpetuating my own crap, basically. So
when I think about it, for me, it was really, I had worked with organizations around what I would say were at that time focused on transformational leadership. And when I say leadership, my brain is thinking leading your life, like you as a leader of your life. And then you'll obviously lead people around whatever your roles are, around whatever the work that you're kind of taking charge of. And then you'll also be a follower, around other people and their roles. But for me, when I was working with organizations around leadership practice, transformational practices, what I would notice is they'd bump up against, they'd kind of have all these new openings. They're really changing their level of awareness, changing their practices, and then they would bump right up against the organization. And the more that they grew, the more challenges they had within their own entity. And my goal was not to actually get everyone to leave their current company, and that's, that was a reality that I was bumping up against. Oh, we're opening something up here. They're doing amazing things, and that's great if they wanted to go and start a company, but quite often they loved what they were doing. They were passionate about the evolutionary purpose or the purpose, the mission of the company they worked in. They just were feeling that, wow, how come we can't do the work we're really here to do? So that was kind of the way I came at it was, how can I get the ones that want to stay in the organizations, how can I support them with a system and structure that they can transform on every level, not just themselves individually, but really have the whole entity live into that evolutionary purpose.
Yeah.
So as I think about, we're talking evolutionary purpose, that was one of the kind of starting points here. And if I'm imagining anyone that's out there living in an organization, some of you may already have evolutionary purposes, and some of you may have something posted on a website that is a purpose statement or a mission statement. So, Gayle, would you say a little bit more about evolutionary purpose from your perspective?
Be glad to. I actually, if I can share a story or what happened for me, and actually truly embodying what it means to have an evolutionary purpose. And so new to Holacracy and new to, even before implementing it, I had a conversation with a woman who was with us on a temporary basis, and she, I'll shortcut her story, but she was with us and had said, I've never been in a company where I felt like my purpose was so appreciated, and what I wanted to do in life was, really aligned here. And, what I really want is can I work for this period of time and then go take a leave and then come back, and, because my purpose is really feeling aligned with what you do here. And I listened and I said, I so appreciate hearing about this energy you feel. And I said, but you know what? I don't care about your purpose. And in fact, I don't even care about my purpose. Colman Knight has its own evolutionary purpose, and that's what we all want to be resonating with and aligning with. And so that started, for us, that was the tipping point, the key, the touchstone that actually helped me to relax and say, I don't have to carry this. I am not the attractor. I am not the one that is glue making this happen. This is so far beyond me. And it was so cool to say, if this evolutionary purpose, if Colman Knight has no evolutionary purpose, it doesn't need to exist. And that was cool. I was so if there isn't reason for us to do anything and offer our work in the world in this format, I'm good to let it go. And that was just like rippling of energy everywhere, because then it was point to this. And so every other role holder or member of Colman Knight was able to look at that. Every new person that we've ever interviewed or hired, it's been this beautiful, easy gateway to assessing whether, I'm really in tune with what's going on with this organization. So that's I still get chills when I think about that, because it's there and it's alive. It's not this static mission statement that might look pretty, but it actually has life to it. And we have some new people going to be coming on board, and we may be tweaking it. And I don't know. Anyways, I'll stop here. Chatty.
Yeah, I love that, because I feel this great moment to talk about one of the practices within Holacracy, which is attention processing. And the way that relates is because, as you said a couple of things, I had attention appear. And so the attention in Holacracy is the gap between current reality and a future potential. So it's the gap between what is right now and what could be. And so that is a fundamental practice that every single person in Holacracy processes tensions. And I know you know that. I'm sharing that so that everyone on the call, if they've never actually had an experience around Holacracy, that they're aware of that. So as I think about sensing tensions and then being able to speak the tension and process the tension, that's kind of what I want to do in the moment as we're speaking here. So when you said something like, I don't care about your purpose, and and it's not about your purpose, and I've had my own experience around this to say, as people, as role fillers, as members, colleagues, partners show up in an organization, intentionally not using the word employee, as these creative forces show up in an organization, they do have a purpose. They really care about their purpose. And I think that the place of your purpose may line up beautifully with the organization. Yeah. And so that it feels seamless, and there's, but there is a distinct difference. And I think that's the fun place, is to say the only reason why we're showing up in this entity, the only reason is for the purpose of CK, of Colman Knight. And I think that's enormously freeing. But even as you said it, I don't care about your purpose. There was something happened inside of me again, and this happens again and again, to get that level of clarity so we know why we are in this entity, this organization together.
Yeah. And I can even remember saying it, and the response from, her name was Emily, but it was a beautiful opening. She was, and when I got to saying, I don't care about mine, it was like this huge aha, like, yeah, and she was capable of recognizing something beyond herself. So it says a lot about her and her ability to shift in any kind of, personal trigger or whatever. But I would say that still continues to be a learning edge for all of us in different times, because we do get attached to our thing and what's special about us, and so there's this beautiful opportunity to weave energies with the roles and accountabilities, and help people to see how what you're doing really, really matters and does meet that purpose, and not get caught up in the mundane. Okay, and so let me share a story. I mean, this happened yesterday, fresh. And so our aim, our mission is, as someone has asked about it, I think, is to catalyzing heart, mind, money, and body. We liberate individuals and family systems. And I was bringing forth the idea and the way of being that our space is sacred. Like, everything that happens here is sacred. So not only the environment physically, but the work and energy we do on behalf of clients. And so I had just come back from a trip, was very, very busy, and the client needed to have some documents notarized. At the moment, I happen to be the only notary present in this location. And so that was the highest priority, and it wasn't what I wanted to be doing. I had other work. Of course, I need to be getting out the door. And, so our client shows up, and in that moment, it was like that was the sacred space. And there was nothing more important for me to be doing than being with her, notarizing these documents that were very important to her and mattered to her, and engaging her and being present. And it offered this opportunity to share with other members that, it isn't necessarily about the specific accountability, but it is the sacredness of how we are in this space, of how we are doing the work, how we are actually seeing and experiencing it. And so in that moment, it was catalyzing heart, mind, money, and body to help liberate this individual.
And what I'm appreciating, what I'm appreciating is, we had a couple of questions in the chat window, and you answered one of them, which is, what is your purpose?
Right.
So I really appreciate that. But also Nina was saying, you were talking about the cycle of I don't want to do it all, and I do it all. And how do you feel like Holacracy really helped you to actually get out of that loop? You're like, did it? So I just wanted to follow up on that question.
Holacracy definitely, yes, can get you out of the loop of, I do it all. And how did it work? Well, filling talent in particular roles, and then actually employing some of the, I'll say, Holacracy lingo, which, what role are you speaking to? In other words, when another role holder comes to me and has a question about something that has nothing to do with any role that I energize, but is coming to me because they think, okay, I might know something because I've been here longer, then my response is, what role are you speaking to? And I can say, I have an opinion, but what I say really doesn't matter. It's you have full authority to do whatever you want to do because this is your accountability. A couple things happen there. Well, maybe more, but this is my experience. One response is well, usually there's a little bit of fear. Comes up. It's like, fear of I actually am getting what I want, or fear of I thought I wanted this, but really, damn, I don't. I really want to be told what to do, or and so therein lies that opening or opportunity for teachable moments about taking 100% responsibility. Really, what does distributed authority mean and look like? And what's happened is the people who really do want to have that authority and plug in and work in a holacratic system gel and find it liberating. And if someone is struggling, they will self-select to leave. And that's happened with a couple of people. And it's perfect. Mm.
Yeah, and just in this place about role definition, so if we think about our traditional organization, we have these job descriptions that I am a VP of marketing, or I am a, whatever that might be, a director of West Coast operations. And it's such an all-encompassing role that it leads to everyone coming to go, oh, well, tell me what to do, just by the sheer nature of it. Oh. So in Holacracy, what I like to call, we've legatized. We've got all these little chunks. We've taken your role and we've, created all these roles, these pieces of Lego that can all snap together. Cool. So now here's my 10 Lego pieces, or 20. Here's your, 30 Lego pieces. Make sure I distribute, effectively. And now, as you say, what role, which piece of Lego am I speaking from? Yeah. And it really, allows people to, shift responsibilities, meaning, I could actually have this piece of Lego assigned to somebody else, instead of, how do you become the regional director for West Coast operations? That's not an easy, move to make. So you can, so just kind of clarify this issue about roles, I wanted to say. There was one other kind of follow-up. Nina was saying she thought it sounded like a scary, was that a scary leap in actually saying, I'm now not going to be responsible for everything?
So I can't read on there where the question was, but was it scary for me to say, what role are you speaking to? And you have
no, I think it's more, was it scary to say, I'm not going to do it all, or I'm not going to be the all-powerful Wizard of Oz called Gayle?
No, I think I'm keep learning this. No, it was very freeing. It was like there are other playmates. There are other energies, other minds, other people who are willing to step in and support. And let me... and it is a journey, a process. Because we've had some experiences and hiccups where I did a bad hire. I hired some talent that didn't work, and...
Oh, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Because as you're going there, you kind of feel like you might be, maybe or may not, so I'm just going to throw it out there, because Dana had said about, doesn't personal purpose and evolutionary organizational purpose need to align? So this may be relevant to that or may not, and I've just wanted to double check to see if it's actually, if there is alignment there.
Well, yes. For me, I can't answer for anyone else, but for me, I would want my energies to be in an organization that was doing good work in the world and service. And, so, yes, for me, that is important. I can't answer for anybody else. But let me say this.
Is it important for you do you have recruiting roles for Colman Knight? I think you do. Is it important for you in that respect?
for everyone here to have their own individual purpose aligned with the evolutionary purpose?
Yeah, so how much does that come into being a fit for the organization? And, so what's your take on that?
Well, my take is that it's part of the screening. I mean, and all I can do is look at what are the roles or that need filling, and is this talent fit for the role? So I'm looking at a number of different things to fulfill that role in the best way. And I do ask and say, this is what we're up to here. How does that resonate? And some people are confused, some people are right there, but I mean, it's their relationship to it. And I would say that if someone is not 100% with it, they might have a harder time feeling connected. But it's not, I mean, I can't do that discernment for anyone else.
Yeah, totally. I don't know if I spoke over you. Well, I know I did, actually, but so I don't know if there's a thread that you wanted to follow up on, but I actually do have another great question.
I don't know what thread I was thinking about 3 seconds ago, so bring it on.
So one of the questions, and I think this is, a question that feels really true, a question for me, or I'd love to answer it, and then I'll throw it out to you, which is, can unenlightened people implement holacracy effectively, or do they end up self-selecting to leave? So it feels a little bit, maybe two different focuses. So when I think about can unenlightened people implement holacracy effectively, the way my brain goes to is, can an organization be effective at implementing holacracy if their leader, existing CEO, existing managing partner, founders, whatever, whoever's got the power, whoever kind of where that power is centralized, if that person doesn't have a certain level of awareness and consciousness that aligns with holacratic practices, then I would make a blanket statement and say this isn't going to be successful. Because if you're not wanting to distribute leadership, if you're not wanting to release control, if you're not wanting to process tensions, then there's no point. So from the CEO authority holder, that would be my answer. So the unenlightened, I would say, I would kind of put that into, if you don't want these type of practices, then don't even bother starting. But the other part of the question is, it really sounds like, can unenlightened members, colleagues, members, partners, how enlightened do they need to be? Because you addressed the issue of they will self-select out. And I've seen it go both ways. I would say some people, they up-level their awareness and consciousness within a holacratic organization. And in fact, that's what I see the majority do. And then others get clear on, I don't want to be in this type, I don't want to take responsibility. Mm-hmm. I don't want to process tensions. I really want to withhold them and actually, hold my grudges, or whatever the issue might be. But that's kind of what was popping up for me. How about yourself, Gayle?
Well, I guess what pops up for me was enlightened. I'm like, I don't know too many enlightened people. I'm unenlightened, so. But awareness, I think, is, or perspective taking is. All right, my thing is popping out. I'm back. So, what I'd say about ability to be in a system that requires you to not only know your own. Now I'm being interrupted out there. Okay, I have a tension with my co-workers.
Well, I think there seems to be a policy that needs to be put in place when you're on your webinar.
My door's shut, and there's a big sign outside that says, "Do not disturb. Don't open the door." I'm kidding. So This has been one of the questions that I had from the very beginning, and I continue to play with. I mean, what kind of level of development do Holacracy players need? You know, people who are in organizations adopting and, you know, using and practicing Holacracy. And I think it depends on the size of the organization in some ways. I mean, in a smaller organization, I'd say that you really play such a bigger part of the organization that it does require some level of perspective taking. And what I mean by perspective taking is to be able to see your view, the other view, and the view of the organization or the view of the client, and hold all of those together. And in our organization, I'd say that there have been a few people who struggled with that. And the thing that's so important, you talked about earlier, and I'll bring it back in right now, is tensions. Tensions are the ability to sense what's actually happening in the field for yourself and on behalf of the organization. And that's a skill. It actually is a skill that you develop, and that you know what that your sensing is actually can go somewhere. And so I know that in Holacracy there's a process you bring forth in tactical meetings and governance meetings and strategy meetings, and it means that you are actually willing to show up, know that you've got attention, and then bring it forth in the structure, and be willing to play in the structure. And that does, in my experience, the direct experience, require a little bit of awareness. Was that long-winded enough?
Well, my thought is, and it is a little bit of awareness, and it ultimately, the more that you can sense, the greater level of awareness, then the greater evolutionary capacity that you can bring to the organization and to your own life as well. There was something about Claire asked a question, and my question is around creating a cultural readiness for holacracy within an organization. What are some of the ways to build the soil, the strategies, practices, and conversations within an organizational culture so that holacracy can be implemented? Can we support the shift in phases? So this is something that WonderWorks works with organizations that want to implement holacracy, and in different offerings that we have, where we work with organizations around specific skills that are required to make an organization that's kind of in this transition mode. They're not in the leap. They're not quite ready for the big leap of saying, okay, yes, let's implement holacracy. So what we do is we do have certain practices that we support organizations with. So if I get down to one of the most basic fundamental practices, it would be, do organizations have the ability to give feedback, give and receive feedback? So not the organization, because obviously it is the energizers of the roles within organizations. So do I have the ability to receive feedback, and do I have the ability to give feedback? And I put feedback into 4 buckets. So one bucket would be sharing withhold. I put it under feedback. It's a little questionable about how much it's feedback, but it's actually literally being able to speak authentically about what's going on over here, so I can clear the energy, clear the space, and really work effectively with another team member. So I might be aware that it's actually my issue, but I'm actually looking to just clear that space. So sharing withhold. Another one is would be sharing constructive feedback, like something that I, have noticed this, and I'd love to make a request and, make a new agreement about how this is, how this happened. So sharing feedback. Sharing appreciation, critical skill. Simply sharing appreciation with team members, anyone with clients, etc. And then the fourth one I put as requested real-time noticing. And to me, it's if I know I've got an issue with listening, I might actually say to the, whether it's a team, because it's non-holocratic, it would be a circle, potentially if we were in holacracy, but share with the people I work with, I've got an issue about listening. I notice I interrupt people or whatever my behavior might be. And I'd love real-time in the moment noticing. And that could happen in any way. It could be, it could be a sign. It could be like, whatever it is, like, or, whatever the sign is. So to me, that's one example of practices that you can share to actually get people into, potentially some of the shifts that need to happen to be able to implement holacracy. However, if the CEO, the board, the existing power holders, the partners are not people who want to distribute leadership, then one of the practices, and I was going to be, laugh, was find an organization that, you've really got that energy of the power holders want to distribute power. Because if you're in an organization where they're not on their own transformational journey, then the organization can do all sorts of things, but ultimately it really is about having some strength in your leadership, in your existing power holders that want this to happen, and then other things to happen throughout the organization. It could be that there's everyone saying, hey, we've actually got the wrong CEO here to take us into the next 50 years of growth.
Well,
I know we've got lots of other questions, so I'm actually just going to do a little tracking. As a leader, I want my reports to be aligned enough to be able to contribute to the evolutionary purpose. Would say, yes, I agree. Talent will do a good job. Aligned talent will do a great job. Totally agree.
Yeah.
Or can holacracy actually help enlighten people? So again, we're using enlighten, and to me, can they expand our awareness? Can they, expand our ability to see other perspectives? Holacracy, I would say, absolutely, through the practices, really does create people to become more aware. Sounds like you're saying, for the most part, yes. It separates the wheat from the chaff. Yes, definitely. Let's just talk about one practice, a holacracy tactical meeting. You've got tensions. So if you want to resolve a tension, you can go one-on-one. I can say, hey, Gayle, I've got this tension. Can I talk to you? But a tactical meeting happens once a week, and it's a way to sync up. It's like a backup plan to capture any tensions that have not been resolved, to that point. It could be you need to speak to a number of people, or it could be, you just had the tension appear before you walked into the tactical meeting. And one of the fundamental pieces in that tactical meeting practice is, if it's my tension, a facilitator of that tactical meeting will ask me, what do you need to resolve your tension? So to me, this one question is radical, because it's saying, oh, I've got a tension. How am I going to resolve my tension? And I've got a facilitator asking me that, and now I have to come up with, do I want to talk to Gayle? Do I want to talk to 3 other people in the circle? Do I want open discussion? Do I want Gayle to take on a project or an action? What do I actually want? And that, to me, up-levels, it expands people's awareness. It gets people to take responsibility. So I'll pause there and see what your thoughts are, Gayle.
It's huge. It's because most of us in this world don't get asked, what do we need? What do we want? So I'd absolutely, totally agree with you. And I think you're asking the question about, does this practice help people to evolve? And yes, it does. And what's interesting is that the learnings come every day, every meeting. At the end of every tactical meeting or every governance meeting, you harvest your learnings. And every time we go around, there's something new that we learn. I want to tag back to one of the questions regarding, can you kind of bring holacracy in phases? It's a really great question. And like with a lot of these questions, there's no one answer. And I'm going to talk about two things. One, in Colman Knight, we have had this way of being called openness to learning. It comes from Hendricks, and we've tweaked it a little. So there is a way that primed our space for adopting holacracy, because holacracy is very open and transparent. It's one of the beauties of it. That being said, there is a real benefit to letting go of the need to know something, letting go of what are we going to do here, how do I prepare, and just coming in. And we just had a governance meeting today. It was the first governance meeting for a person who just joined us several months ago, and an intern who's with us for a temporary period. And fascinating, because Jake is the name of the intern. He came in and he goes, Gayle, I don't know what this meeting's about. What do I need? What do I need to do? Whatever. And I looked at him, and he's a really super conscientious guy. We love him. And I said, just show up. And I could see his he'd get a little tense, and he's like, well, I don't have a role, whatever, and actually there's like all this stuff going back in my head. He needs a role, and I'm doing something else. Anyways, I said, just show up and see what happens. Anyways, he shows up and fully participates, as well as Shannon, who was with us. And she actually brought in some great work, but it was brand new and was comparing it to tactical meetings. Anyways, they both learned something. They both ended up saying, wow, this was really great. And in fact, I thought, I'm going to go ask them how that was for them. What really happened for you? So I did, and I wrote notes. So Jake said, he said the structure was interesting. He learned a ton more. He said about diving into accountabilities, roles, and policies. And he saw when they were discussed how they affected the whole work of Colman Knight, far more than ever before. And he said things really clicked a whole lot better. And so then I said, well, how was it when I said just show up? He goes, well, because I was really uncomfortable, but afterwards I felt great. It was, he could see how he contributed. And he said, I'm just going to sit there. I said, well, no, you're not, actually. You will participate. And he had some great things to offer. It was, and then Shannon, she said, I had an idea from tactical meeting how that would work. And so, she said, what happened was I was able to clarify the difference in accountabilities and policy. And she said, it worked very fast. It was really, she said, I can't believe how efficient it was, because in other companies that she's been in, she says, my God, it would go to HR and then somewhere else for policy. And she said, she goes, distributed authority really means that can happen. She said it was distributed authority can happen. And and that was, a couple of hours ago.
Yeah.
So was that helpful?
That's really helpful, and one of the things I want to kind of underline is, so when we talk about tactical meetings, we're talking about a meeting that is, how do we get the work done? How do we work in the operation? How do we remove constraints so that our webinars can go really effectively? Because some of you may have had an experience last time we had a slight hiccup, you might say, with our webinar where we had a sound issue.
Are you going to tell us about that? I'm interrupting you.
I know. I'm just thinking. So from a tactical perspective, it's okay, what do we need to do in this moment? What do we actually need to change to actually get the thing done? And so it could be, so definitely there was a project that got assigned to Ra about webinar technology platform clarified, or webinar technology platform refined is more than likely what it was. So that's a tactical. How do we get it done? Gayle's talking about governance. Governance is who has what role, who has what accountability, what policies are in place, and who's got the power to make what decisions. So that we had governance that passed around this to say, okay, who really is doing what around this webinar? There was some unclear governance. So those tensions, like who does what, that goes to governance. But how we're actually, not how we're going to do the work, but what are the tensions or the gaps or the needs of actually getting the work done, that happening tactical. Strategy is simply, what are the strategies that we're employing to actually ensure that we deliver on the purpose? And so strategy meetings don't happen as frequently, tactical, weekly. Governance are monthly, maybe every 6 weeks, depends on the size of the organization and how much change is changing in each circle. And strategy can be every 3 months, every 6 months. It just depends on, again, how much you need to evolve your strategies. Yeah. So that I think answers one of the questions. But there was one that got missed, and that was, what about a CEO who wants to, i.e., implement Holacracy, but still exhibits behaviors of micromanaging? How do you help him transition to become an enlightened person? So, I think I'd really throw the whole enlightenment out the window. It's a great goal. Maybe some people will hold their evolution in that context, but it's kind of a destination. Like, I'm now enlightened. Just by the way, I'm not. But, and it's the myth of arrival. Like, you will at some point arrive at this place where you can tick a box and say, yes, I'm enlightened. So what we're really talking about is more this continual iterative evolution, growth, transformation of, wow, I remember when I was the regional director of West Coast operations and how controlling I was. And there's a whole bunch of people in Arnold Palmer Golf Management that could remember my controlling behaviors. And so now I am way less controlling. But I don't believe there will be a moment in my life where I will tick a box and say, controlling outcomes, others' behaviors, or my actions are totally disappeared. Yeah, it's not a goal of mine. The issue is, can I notice, wow, I just freaked out, I was controlling, and now I'm going to shift into a different practice or speak differently. So I don't think a leader, CEO, needs to be at some magical level of transformation on their journey or evolution. I think they have to want distributed power. It's about, not have to, but it's about them being passionate about, how do I bring in the collective intelligence? How do I get others' perspectives in the mix? How do we make the decision at the level it needs to be made, which is normally with the person doing the job? These are the things of, if they want that, it doesn't matter if they can't do it. They just have to want it and then commit to the practice, is the way I see it. I don't know if you've got thoughts to add to that, Gayle.
Well, the only thought I would add is that very often the motivator is pain. And that was what it was in my situation. And that's the motivator for most people to actually get on the journey to become more aware. So we first recognize that we have a lot of pain, and then we move along the path a little bit, and then we recognize that others are also in pain and suffering, and that opens us up a little bit more to include the other in the collective journey, and then we continue on. So that's the way it is. I mean, in life, period. We're human beings.
Yeah, and maybe, to go a little bit deeper with the example we said about the previous webinar, because I remember in the moment that my sound wasn't working, so people couldn't hear me, and that would make it very difficult to have a conversation. I had enormous pain in that moment. So there was part of me going, okay, there's a camera right there, and there's people, and, I want to honor the people who are, signing up, being there, giving their precious time, excited or energized to know more about holacracy. So there was awareness there. There was a whole thing going on inside of me, which was more like, the phone won't work. That was going on inside of me, the individual. And there was honoring Gayle. There was Ra, who was doing his thing to make it work. So I think that pain, the pain of, I know I can't do it all myself, and I know I don't want to do it all myself.
Yeah.
And there was a momentary experience of, oh my goodness, if I had just done this myself. I had that momentary thought that last time.
Yeah.
But what's true is the pain will, for me, my experience is collaboration, partnering, conversation, truly giving people full autonomy over what they're great at, or giving them the autonomy to learn and become great at, whatever the scenario might be, and me getting out of the way of it, because I've realized that me sometimes inserting myself is getting in the way of it. And to me, all of those pains, there's many pains in that one scenario. And the way through my belief system is it's about the perspectives of others. It's about others showing up, doing what they're great at. It's about them learning through having decision-making authority, not like, oh, now you know how to follow what Anna says. That doesn't grow anyone. So I think that's all that's needed is a healthy want, and then a willingness. Gayle, you said about openness to learning. I think there's a healthy need for openness to learning to go on this journey, and then it's a party. It's fun.
So I just want to reflect back to you how precious what you just described was for all of us, because I could even it was so alive in what you described and your tenderness in this whole process. I mean, I can feel how important that was. I mean, just so much was in what you just shared, and thank you. I have this felt sense that I can't even describe right now, but so genuine, so real, and that's what holacracy enables. That's what I would say.
Yeah, thanks. Because I know, I can show up in all of my mess and as my ugliest, meaning, going panic, in anger, sad, scared, all of that. And holacracy can hold it all because it's purely about how do we process the tension authentically, and then how do we iterate forward to get to the magical outcome of September the 17th, we're doing this again, and I've had so much fun actually having this conversation. I know there's a time frame. I get all that, so I will check back in and see what's going on. So if anyone, my thought is I'll ask a closing question for you, and then if any other questions, as Ra and Margaret said, you can go to either Twitter, Facebook, or email us. And our email address is on the website, WonderWorksConsulting.com, so just so you've got a way to capture that. So when I think about the journey of holacracy, what would you say is, could you distill into one thing what is most powerful for you about holacracy, even if it's repeating something? But what's the one thing that kind of bubbles up for you in this moment?
It really is being open to all of the possibilities and really appreciating all of the human energy that wants to come forth in service of, the organizational purpose. And what I'm learning, I mean, we all are, is just that, is how the collective is so brilliant, and that Holacracy actually enables people's, light to shine. I mean, it's like, how can the fire of life burn more brightly in all of us? Mm-hmm. And I would say Holacracy actually is that scaffolding that enables that.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Gayle. I'm kind of reflecting on it in this moment for me, because as I hear you talk about that, Holacracy being the scaffolding and people's actual light shining, the thing that I've definitely experienced is the structure allows really different perspectives to be shared in a way that everyone hears, and then they are integrated in this amazing way, so that, to me, it's one of the structures that really honors diversity. Because you can be in a meeting, and it's not about Gayle, the founder. It's about what circle is she in and what role does she have. Totally. And I might, another role might have, all sorts of, roles that are at play making decisions. And Gayle might be in that circle and have, only minor roles. And so it really fundamentally shakes up. To me, I find millennials love it. I feel like people who find that, how do I get my voice in the mix? And whether you're introverted, extroverted, whether you're, it doesn't matter what it is, which way you come to this. Holacracy creates an absolute sacred space for every voice to be in the mix.
Yeah.
And I love that.
It cuts through all of the different identity pockets that we get ourselves in. So, yes, young to old, any type of,
power.
background, power, it's just, it's not an issue.
And so I want to, as we both are committed to integrity as our practice, I want to make sure that we are complete on time. I absolutely appreciate your time today. This has been a fabulous conversation. I love talking to you. And do you have anything that you would like to complete here?
I just, thank you for the opportunity to dance a little bit and, share about Holacracy here at Colman Knight and how we've, really, I wouldn't say become enlightened, but are an organization towards improving the world, and Holacracy has helped us to do that. There's just a lot of questions. I have probably, ADD and a lot of questions here, so I'm...
Yeah, so the only one is, I know that Claudia's interested in next steps. And what we'll do is we'll follow up with an email to give you some next steps to get some more concrete actions, because some of you have been practicing a long time. Some of you are brand new on your journey. So we will be following up before next Tuesday with an email with lots of different resources. You could also check out our website, WonderWorks Consulting, where there's videos, articles, etc. So it's 101. I will actually say thank you very much and appreciate everyone dialing in. It was an absolute pleasure.
Yeah. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
You rock.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.